I came face to face with my best friend 10 years after he stabbed me in the back when I was already at rock bottom, and what he told me made me hate him even more now than I did back then. My wife came to me 10 years ago, the morning of our anniversary, telling me she doesn't love me anymore and wants a divorce. I thought it was a prank at first, but it wasn't. She just fell out of love and needed to move on with her life. She still had the audacity to accept the diamond necklace I'd bought as a present though. Either way, it was crushing. But believe it or not, the hardest part wasn't parting ways with her. It was parting ways with my 6-year-old daughter. I loved her with all my heart, but the judge didn't see it that way, and that was mainly because of what my best friend did. I still remember that day in court so vividly. My best friend, the guy I'd known since high school, took the stand out of nowhere. I remember feeling relieved at first because surely he would back me up, but instead, he looked me dead in the eyes and started crying, corroborating my wife's story and telling everyone how he watched me violently shake my daughter during one of my rage episodes. My jaw dropped. I looked at him like it was a bad dream. He started showing doctored texts and video clips of me and my daughter, our happy moments twisted into painting me out as an abusive monster. I looked over at my wife, who was putting on crocodile tears, as if every word he was saying was true. The judge stared at me with disgust. My lawyer wasn't ready for it. Even he looked at me like I was a liar when I told him this was fake. That day, I lost everything. No visitation, no phone calls, nothing. When I stepped outside the courtroom, I could barely breathe. I gathered my things and went home, proceeding to drown my sorrows in alcohol. Once hammered, I called my best friend, slurring my speech and demanding to know why he'd destroyed my life. But all I got back was laughter, cold and smug. He told me flat out, "I've wanted your wife to be mine for so long. You know how sick I can get when I'm in love." Then my ex-wife took the phone, her voice dripping with cruelty. "He'll be a better father to her than you ever were. You'll never see your daughter again." I started crying over the phone, begging them to tell me they were joking. Instead, my ex poured salt into my wound. She told me that they have been sleeping together behind my back for 2 years, planning exactly how to take my daughter from me. The whole thing was an orchestrated lie to ruin my life. I was devastated. I should have confronted them, but I didn't. I moved states, started over, but I never gave up hope. I kept sending birthday cards, letters, and gifts to my daughter, hoping she'd know her dad loves her, but I never heard a word. All I knew for certain was that my ex was lying to her about how I used to do things to her when she was little. My ex told me so herself. I was almost ready to face the fact she'd never really know me. But then, out of nowhere, 10 years later, a call came that shattered everything. A hospital from my old hometown said my daughter had been in a car accident. They told me my name was listed as her emergency contact. My heart nearly exploded. Why was I her emergency contact? But I didn't ask. I just jumped into my car, hands trembling the whole drive. When I walked into that hospital waiting room, my ex-wife and former best friend sat stunned, clearly never expecting to see me again. The air was thick with awkwardness. My ex-wife quietly got up and moved toward the doctors, presumably to warn them, leaving me and him alone. I didn't say a word, and that's when he started speaking. At first, he seemed emotional, almost like he might apologize. But instead, the things he said made my blood boil. He admitted to me with a cruel tone that he never gave my daughter any of my letters or gifts I sent. He laughed about how he convinced her I'd abandoned her. But then, just as I thought it couldn't get worse, he changed gears. A fake sorrow began dripping from his every word, trying to make himself sound like the victim. "I'll admit it," he said, putting on this righteous act. "I neglected her. Kids are a lot of work, man. You know how it is. I'm not proud of this, but there were times she needed a good wallop. Honestly, I'm doing you a favor letting you back in her life now. She's a mess. You should thank me." I felt myself about to explode. Every part of me wanted to swing at him right there, but before I could respond, a small, weak voice called out from behind the slightly open curtain nearby. My daughter, awake, staring at us both, her eyes filled with pain and confusion. I ran over, heart pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. She looked so small in that hospital bed, her face pale and bruised from the accident. I rushed to her side, my legs barely holding me up. Her eyes darted between me and my former best friend, confusion and fear mixing in her expression. "Dad?" she whispered, and that single word nearly broke me. After 10 years, she still remembered. My ex-wife burst through the curtain, her face red with panic. She grabbed a nurse's arm, pointing at me while speaking in urgent whispers. The nurse glanced my way, then shook her head and walked off. My ex's plan, whatever it was, wasn't working. "Get away from her," my ex hissed, positioning herself between me and my daughter. "You have no right to be here. His name is on my emergency contact list," my daughter said weakly. "I put it there myself." The room went silent. My ex-wife's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. My former best friend stood up, his fake sympathy replaced with something darker. "Sweetheart, you're confused from the accident," he said, moving toward the bed. "You don't know what you're saying." "Don't call me sweetheart," she snapped, then winced from the effort. "And I know exactly what I'm saying." A doctor entered, clipboard in hand. He looked at the crowded room and frowned. "I'm going to need everyone except immediate family to step outside." "He's not family," my ex said quickly, pointing at me. "He lost all parental rights 10 years ago." The doctor turned to my daughter. "Miss, you're 16 now. You can decide who stays." She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. I saw myself in her eyes, the same green color, the same slight upturn at the corners. "He stays," she said. "They go." My ex-wife grabbed the doctor's arm. "You don't understand. He's dangerous. He used to hurt her when she was little. We have court documents." "Then call security," the doctor said, pulling free. "But right now, my patient has made her wishes clear." My former best friend stepped forward, his voice taking on that fake concerned tone again. "Doc, I think she might have a head injury. She's not thinking straight." "Her scans came back clear," the doctor replied. "Now please step outside so I can examine my patient." They left reluctantly, my ex shooting daggers at me with her eyes. My former best friend whispered something to her as they walked out, and she nodded grimly. Once alone with my daughter and the doctor, I pulled a chair close to her bed. The doctor checked her vitals, asked her some questions about pain levels, then excused himself to get her medication. vacation. Why did you list me? I asked when we were alone. She picked at the hospital blanket, avoiding my eyes. I found some old photos in the attic last year. You and me at the park, at the beach, reading bedtime stories. You looked happy. We both did. My throat tightened. I was. Those were the best days of my life. They told me those photos were fake, that you paid someone to doctor them to try to get custody. She finally met my eyes, but I could tell they were real. The way you looked at me in those pictures. Nobody can fake that. I reached into my wallet and pulled out a worn photo I'd carried for 10 years. It showed her on my shoulders at the county fair, both of us laughing at something off camera. This one's my favorite, I said, handing it to her. She studied it, tears forming in her eyes. I remember this day. You won me that giant teddy bear. Mr. Snuffles, I said, smiling despite everything. You remember his name? I remember everything, sweetheart. Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone I missed. I sent you cards and letters for all of them. Her face darkened. I never got them. I know, I said quietly. He just told me. She crushed the blanket in her fists. They said you abandoned me, that you moved away and started a new family, that you didn't want me anymore. I never remarried, never had other kids. I couldn't replace you. The door burst open. My ex-wife stood there with 2 security guards. That's him, she said, pointing at me. He's violating a restraining order. One guard stepped forward. Sir, I'm going to need to see some ID. I handed over my driver's license, my hands steady despite the anger boiling inside me. The guard radioed someone, then waited. After a few minutes, his radio crackled. There's no active restraining order on file, the voice said. My ex's face went white. That's impossible. Check again. Ma'am, we've checked twice. There's no current order against this man. She spun on her heel and stormed out. The guards apologized and left. My daughter watched the whole thing with wide eyes. She lied about that too? She asked. Before I could answer, my former best friend appeared in the doorway. He'd clearly been listening from the hall. Princess, don't let him manipulate you. You know what he did. No, she said firmly. I know what you told me he did. There's a difference. His mask slipped for just a second, and I saw the real him underneath. The calculating, cruel man who'd stolen my life. Then the fake concern was back. You're upset. That's understandable. But think about who's been there for you all these years. Who drove you to school? Who helped with homework? Who hit me when mom wasn't looking? She interrupted. The room went cold. He stepped back like she'd slapped him. Princess, I never. Last month, you backhanded me because I talked back. 2 months before that, you shoved me into a wall because I came home late. Should I keep going? I stood up, my fists clenched. Every protective instinct I'd suppressed for 10 years came roaring back. But my daughter grabbed my hand. Don't, she said. He's not worth it. My former best friend's face cycled through emotions. Shock, anger, then back to that fake sadness. I was just trying to discipline you. You've been so difficult lately. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Now. He looked between us, then turned and left without another word. I sat back down, still holding my daughter's hand. How long? I asked. Since I was 8, she said quietly. At first it was just yelling, then pushing. The hitting started when I turned 13. I wanted to hunt him down, to make him pay for every mark he'd left on my child. But she needed me here more than I needed revenge. I'm so sorry, I said. I should have fought harder. I should have found a way. How? They told everyone you were dangerous. They had evidence, witnesses. Even I believed it for years. The doctor returned with her medication. As he administered it, I noticed my daughter getting drowsy. Before she fell asleep, I pulled out a business card and wrote my cell number on the back. This is my number, I said, tucking it into her hand. Call me anytime, day or night, if you need anything at all. She nodded, her eyes already closing. Don't leave yet, she mumbled. I won't, I promised. I sat there for hours, watching her sleep. My ex and former best friend came and went, trying different tactics. They brought in other family members to guilt me into leaving. They tried to get different doctors to kick me out. Nothing worked. As visiting hours ended, a nurse finally made me leave. My daughter was still asleep, but I left a note on her bedside table. I'll be back tomorrow. Love, Dad. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. I extended my leave from work and found a cheap motel near the hospital. Every day, I visited during allowed hours. My ex and former best friend were always there, watching, waiting for me to slip up. They tried everything. My ex would loudly discuss my violent past within earshot of nurses. My former best friend would make snide comments about me abandoning my daughter. They even brought in Catherine, an old mutual friend, to testify about what a terrible person I was. But Catherine took one look at me and froze. Oh my God, she said. They told me you were in prison. That opened a floodgate. Suddenly, she was questioning everything they'd told her. When she left that day, she hugged me and whispered, I'm so sorry I believed them. My daughter watched it all with sharp eyes. She was getting stronger, asking more questions. I answered honestly, even when it hurt. I told her about the divorce, the trial, the decade of silence. I showed her copies of every letter I'd sent, every card, every gift receipt. I kept copies, I explained, hoping that someday I could prove I never stopped trying. She cried then, really cried. Not the quiet tears from before, but deep, body-shaking sobs. I held her while she let out 10 years of lies and manipulation. My ex tried one last desperate move. She arrived with a lawyer, claiming I was emotionally abusing my daughter by confusing her with lies. The lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman with cold eyes, tried to serve me with papers, but my daughter spoke up. I want my own lawyer, she said clearly. I'm 16. I have rights. The hospital social worker, who'd been monitoring the situation, nodded approvingly. I can help arrange that, she said. My ex's lawyer left quickly after that, sensing a losing battle. The day my daughter was discharged, she had a choice to make. The social worker had arranged temporary housing options, while the legal situation was sorted out. She could go home with her mother, stay with a relative, or enter a group home temporarily. What about with my dad? She asked. The social worker looked uncertain, given the past custody arrangement. That was based on lies, my daughter said firmly. I want to see the real court documents, all of them. It took another week, but we got them. Reading through the transcripts was painful. My former best friend's testimony was detailed, convincing, and completely fabricated. But what hurt most was seeing how thoroughly I'd been outmaneuvered. This is insane, Catherine said, reading over my shoulder. She'd become an unexpected ally, helping us navigate the legal system. I remember that day he claimed you shook her. You were at my birthday birthday party, 3 hours away. We started building our case slowly, carefully. My daughter began texting me from a secret phone she'd bought with saved allowance money. Late-night conversations revealed more abuse, more neglect, more lies than I'd imagined. One night, she sent a photo of bruises on her arm. From last week, she wrote. He said I was being disrespectful. I saved everything, building a file that would destroy them if needed, but I had to be careful. One wrong move, and they'd find a way to cut me off again. My former best friend must have sensed something was changing. He started his own campaign, sending me threatening messages from anonymous numbers. Stay away from my daughter, one read. You'll regret coming back, said another. I kept those too. Then he escalated. My daughter told me he'd shown her proof that I was dangerous. Photos of women with bruised faces, claiming I'd hurt them. Police reports with my name on them. She was smart enough to look closely and see they were forgeries, but it rattled her. What if there's something real mixed in? She asked during one of our secret meetings at a coffee shop. What if you did hurt someone and don't remember? I understood her fear. 10 years of gaslighting doesn't disappear overnight. Let's hire a private investigator, I suggested. Have them do a complete background check on me and on them, she agreed. The investigator's report was illuminating. My record was clean, except for the custody battle. But my former best friend? 2 domestic violence complaints from previous girlfriends, both dropped after they mysteriously left town. Financial irregularities at his job. A sealed juvenile record that our investigator couldn't access but confirmed existed. He's been planning this for years, the investigator told us. The paper trail shows he was researching custody law months before your divorce. We were building our case when disaster nearly struck. I came back to my motel room one evening to find the door ajar. Inside, police were searching my room. Someone had reported seeing me with stolen goods. They found planted evidence, jewelry I'd never seen before, electronics with serial numbers reported stolen. I was arrested on the spot, my heart sinking as I realized how this would look, but I'd learned to be paranoid. The motel had security cameras, and I'd been recording myself entering and leaving every day. The timestamp showed I was at the hospital when the theft supposedly occurred. Someone's setting me up, I told the detective. Please, check the footage. They did. The video showed my former best friend entering my room with a key he'd somehow obtained. He spent 10 minutes inside, then left carrying a bag. The charges were dropped immediately. You might want to file charges of your own, the detective suggested. I did. The community meeting where everything came to a head wasn't planned. It was a school event my daughter invited me to, her first public acknowledgement of our relationship. My ex and former best friend were there, of course, glaring daggers at me. During a break, he confronted me by the refreshment table. You think you're clever, he hissed, but she'll see through you eventually. They always do. Like your ex-girlfriend saw through you? I replied calmly. His face went red. People were starting to notice our tense conversation. My daughter appeared at my side, slipping her hand into mine. Everything okay, Dad? She asked loudly. The word Dad rippled through the crowd. People who'd known our story, or thought they did, started whispering. My ex rushed over. Sweetheart, come here. Don't stand near him. No, my daughter said simply. What happened next was pure impulse. My former best friend grabbed my daughter's arm, trying to pull her away. She cried out in pain. He'd grabbed right where her bruises were. Let go of her, I said, my voice deadly calm. He squeezed harder. She's my daughter. I raised her. You abused her, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And I can prove it. The room went silent. He released her arm, his face cycling through emotions. You're lying, just like you always lie. Catherine stepped out of the crowd. No, he's not. I've seen the evidence. Photos, medical records, text messages. You've been hurting this girl for years. Other people started speaking up. A neighbor mentioned hearing yelling from their house. A teacher talked about bruises she'd noticed. My daughter's friend admitted she'd been sworn to secrecy about the abuse. My former best friend looked around wildly, realizing he was losing control. This is ridiculous. I'm calling my lawyer. Good idea, I said, pulling out my phone. Because I have a recording of you admitting to stealing my daughter's letters. Would you like me to play it? He lunged at me then, in front of everyone. I sidestepped, and he crashed into the refreshment table. Punch went everywhere. He scrambled up, covered in red liquid, looking deranged. You ruined everything, he screamed. She was supposed to be mine. The life was supposed to be mine. My ex tried damage control. He's not himself. The stress of raising a difficult teenager. Difficult, my daughter interrupted. I'm difficult because I don't like being hit? The crowd turned on them then. Questions flew, accusations followed. Someone called the police. In the chaos, my former best friend tried to run, but several fathers from the community blocked his path. When the police arrived, they took statements from everyone. My daughter spoke clearly, bravely, about years of abuse. I provided my evidence. Catherine testified about the lies she'd been told. My former best friend was arrested that night. As they led him away, he looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, he mouthed. But it was. The custody battle that followed was swift. With mountains of evidence and my daughter's own testimony, the judge had no choice. Full custody was granted to me, with supervised visitation for my ex, if my daughter wanted it. She didn't. We moved into a small apartment together, starting over after a decade apart. It wasn't easy. She had nightmares, trust issues, anger at the lost years, but we worked through it together, with therapy and patience and love. 6 months later, Catherine called with news. My former best friend had been convicted of child abuse and attempted frame-up. He got 5 years in prison and would have to register as a child abuser when he got out. It's not enough, I said. No, Catherine agreed, but it's something. My daughter overheard the conversation. It's enough, she said quietly. I'm free. We're together. That's what matters. I pulled her into a hug, breathing in the reality of having my daughter back. She was right. After everything, we'd found our way back to each other. The lost years hurt, but we had the future. I love you, Dad, she whispered. I love you too, sweetheart. Always have. Always will. And for the first time in 10 years, I truly believed everything would be okay. The apartment felt too quiet that first morning. I woke early, making breakfast while my daughter slept, still adjusting to the strange normalcy of having her under my roof. The eggs sizzled in the pan as my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Heavy breathing filled the line, then a distorted voice spoke. You think you've won? Prison walls can't hold everything back. The line went dead. My hand trembled slightly as I set the phone down. He'd been locked up for only 2 weeks, but his reach apparently extended beyond bars. I deleted the call history, not wanting my daughter to worry. She appeared in the doorway moments later, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Smells good," she said, settling at our small kitchen table. We ate in comfortable silence, both still learning how to exist in the same space after so long apart. She had therapy at 10, then we planned to shop for bedroom furniture. Normal father-daughter activities that felt surreal after everything. The therapist's office was across town. I waited in the parking lot, scrolling through work emails, when movement caught my eye. A familiar figure ducked behind a car 3 rows over, my ex-wife. She pretended to search for keys, but I saw her watching the building entrance. When my daughter emerged an hour later, my ex approached her quickly. I jumped out, intercepting them near the door. "Mom?" My daughter stepped back, surprise and wariness mixing on her face. "Baby, I just wanted to talk," my ex said, reaching out. "I miss you so much." "You're violating the custody agreement," I said firmly. "You need supervised visitation approval first." Her eyes flashed with anger before settling into practiced sorrow. "I'm her mother. Surely 5 minutes." "No." My daughter's voice was steady. "I'm not ready." My ex's mask slipped momentarily, revealing fury underneath. "He's poisoning you against me. Can't you see that? The only poison came from you and him," my daughter replied, taking my arm. "We're leaving." As we walked away, my ex called out, "You'll regret this. Both of you." The furniture shopping trip helped lighten the mood. My daughter picked out a desk, bookshelf, and bedding in shades of blue and gray. Watching her excitement over something so simple broke my heart a little. She should have had years of this, not just months. That evening, while assembling the desk together, she asked, "Do you think Mom will try something?" I tightened a screw carefully. "Probably, but we'll handle whatever comes." She nodded, passing me another piece. "The therapist says I'm doing well, processing everything." "You're the strongest person I know," I told her honestly. Her smile was worth every battle we'd faced. The next few weeks passed peacefully. Too peacefully. I should have known something was building. The first sign came through Catherine, who called one evening sounding shaken. "Someone broke into my house," she said. "Nothing stolen, but my computer was accessed. All our emails about your case were deleted." "Did you call the police?" "Yes, but without evidence of what was taken." She sighed. "I had backups. Don't worry, but this feels targeted." It did. I increased security on our apartment, installing cameras and new locks. My daughter noticed but didn't complain. She understood the necessity. Work became complicated when my boss called me in for a meeting. Someone had sent an anonymous tip about my criminal history and unstable behavior. Fortunately, I'd been transparent about the custody situation when requesting leave. My boss dismissed the accusations but warned me to be careful. "Whoever's doing this isn't playing around," he said. The harassment escalated subtly. Flat tires appeared overnight. Neighbors received letters warning them about the dangerous man in apartment 4B. My daughter's school got anonymous calls about my violent tendencies. Each incident alone seemed minor, but together they painted a picture of systematic intimidation. I documented everything, building another file. The police couldn't do much without proof linking it to specific individuals. My daughter handled it remarkably well, though I saw the strain in her eyes. One night, she broke down over homework, throwing her pencil across the room. "I can't focus," she cried. "Every time things feel normal, something happens. When does it end?" I held her while she sobbed, wishing I had answers. "We're stronger than they think," I whispered. "We'll outlast this." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Daniel, a co-worker I barely knew, approached me at lunch looking uncomfortable. "This is awkward," he began, "but my cousin works at the prison where that guy is. He's been paying people to make calls, send messages. Thought you should know." My jaw tightened. "Do you have proof?" My cousin could probably get some, but he'd risk his job. I understood. "Just knowing helps. Thank you." That evening, I hired the private investigator again. If my former best friend was orchestrating harassment from prison, we needed evidence. The investigator promised to dig carefully. Meanwhile, life continued. My daughter joined the school debate team, made friends, slowly built a normal teenage existence. I attended every competition, every parent meeting, making up for lost time. During one debate tournament, I noticed a man photographing the crowd rather than the competitors. When he saw me watching, he quickly left. I followed, catching him at his car. "Can I help you?" I asked. He fumbled with keys. "Just taking pictures for the yearbook." "Funny, since you're not wearing a school badge." His face flushed. "Look, I'm just doing a job. Guy paid me to document who comes to these events." "What guy?" "I don't know his name. Got hired through a friend of a friend. Cash deal." I photographed his license plate as he drove away. Another piece for the file. The investigator called a week later with disturbing news. "Your ex has been visiting the prison regularly, more than allowed for non-family. She's listed as his spiritual advisor to get extra time." Can they do that? Technically, yes. But here's the interesting part. She's been depositing money into multiple prisoner accounts, not just his, spreading it around to avoid detection. The pieces click together. They were funding the harassment campaign jointly, using prison connections to maintain distance from the actual acts. "Is it enough for police action?" I asked. "Not yet, but I'm building a money trail. Give me more time." Time felt like a luxury we didn't have. My daughter's grades started slipping from stress. She jumped at unexpected noises. The therapy sessions increased to twice weekly. One afternoon, she came home from school pale and shaking. "There was a man," she said, "outside school. He knew things about me, about us. Said you weren't who I thought you were." My blood ran cold. What exactly did he say? That you'd hurt other kids before me, that there were sealed records, that Mom was trying to protect me but couldn't say anything because of legal threats. I called the school immediately, then the police. The security footage showed a middle-aged man approaching my daughter at the bus stop. His face wasn't clear enough for identification. That night, I sat her down for a difficult conversation. "Do you believe what he said?" She chewed her lip, a habit from childhood I'd seen in old videos. "No, but it scared me. What if there's something I don't know? Then we find out together," I said. "Full transparency. Would you like to see my complete background check? Employment records? Everything?" She nodded. We spent hours going through documents. My entire adult life laid bare. Tax returns, employment reviews, interviews, medical records, nothing hidden. You're really boring, she finally said with a small smile. In a good way. The harassment took a darker turn when a brick crashed through our living room window at 2 a.m. Wrapped around it was a note: give her back or lose everything. My daughter stood in the doorway, clutching a baseball bat she'd grabbed from her room. I'm not going back, she said fiercely. Ever. The police took it more seriously now. Physical violence crossed a line from harassment to assault. They increased patrols near our building and suggested we consider relocating temporarily. No, my daughter said firmly. I'm tired of running. This is our home. I'd never been prouder of her courage. Catherine proved invaluable again, rallying community support. Parents from the debate team offered to escort my daughter to and from school. Neighbors organized a watch system. The same community that had once shunned me now stood as protection. The investigator finally hit payday. I've got them, he said, spreading financial records across my kitchen table. Your ex has been withdrawing cash in structured amounts to avoid reporting requirements. The money matches deposits into prisoner accounts. Those prisoners have been making calls to numbers that trace back to the people harassing you. Is it enough? More than enough. This is conspiracy, money laundering, witness intimidation. The FBI will be very interested. We turned everything over to law enforcement. The investigation moved quickly once federal authorities got involved. Prison calls were subpoenaed, financial records examined, connections traced. My ex was arrested at her job, led out in handcuffs while co-workers watched. The news spread quickly through our old social circles. Catherine kept me updated on the community reaction. Shock, disbelief, but also a growing understanding of the truth. My daughter handled the news quietly. I knew she was helping him, she said. The visits were too frequent. She never visited that much when I lived there. The trial preparations began. We would both need to testify again, reliving painful memories, but this time felt different. We had truth and evidence on our side. One evening, while preparing dinner together, my daughter said something that stopped me cold. I'm glad this happened. I turned, confused. The harassment? No, all of it. The accident, you coming back, even the scary parts. She stirred the pasta thoughtfully. If none of this happened, I'd still be living a lie, still being hurt. Now I'm free, and I have my real dad. I hugged her tightly, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. The investigation revealed more than we'd expected. My former best friend had a whole network inside prison, built through his manipulative charm and my ex's money. They'd planned everything, hoping to break us psychologically and force my daughter back into their control, but they'd underestimated us. Every attack had made us stronger, more united. The community that once believed their lies now saw the truth clearly. A month before the trial, I received a letter from prison. Not anonymous this time. He'd signed it. The handwriting was neat, controlled, but the words seethed with rage. You destroyed my life, it read. I gave that ungrateful brat everything, and you poisoned her against me. You think you've won, but this isn't over. I'll get out eventually, and when I do, you'll pay for every day I've spent in here. I added it to the evidence file. Threats from prison would only extend his sentence. My daughter read it once, then handed it back. He still doesn't get it, she said sadly. He thinks love is ownership. That's why he'll always lose. Her insight amazed me. Despite everything she'd endured, she'd emerged wise beyond her years. The trial date approached. We prepared with prosecutors, reviewing testimony and evidence. My daughter remained steady, determined to speak her truth. Are you scared? I asked the night before. No, she said firmly. I've been scared for 10 years. I'm done with fear. As we drove to the courthouse that morning, sunrise painting the sky pink and gold, I felt a sense of completion. Not an ending, but a transformation. We'd survived the worst they could throw at us. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. Ready? I asked, parking the car. She squeezed my hand. Ready. We walked into the courthouse side by side, prepared for the final battle. Behind us lay months of harassment, intimidation, and fear. Ahead waited justice, closure, and the promise of a peaceful future. The security checkpoint loomed before us, officers checking bags and IDs. As we approached, I noticed familiar faces in the lobby. Catherine, supportive neighbors, even my boss. They'd come to show solidarity. My daughter noticed too, her spine straightening with renewed confidence. We weren't alone anymore. We had truth, evidence, and a community that finally saw clearly. The elevator doors opened, ready to carry us to the courtroom. As we stepped inside, my daughter looked up at me with those green eyes so like my own. After this is over, she said, can we take a vacation? Somewhere quiet, just us? Anywhere you want, I promised. The doors closed, lifting us toward the confrontation we'd both been preparing for. Win or lose, we'd already reclaimed what mattered most, each other. The elevator ascended slowly, each floor marking another heartbeat in my chest. My daughter's hand remained steady in mine, her grip firm and determined. The courtroom waited on the 7th floor, and with it, the culmination of everything we'd fought for. The doors opened to reveal a packed hallway. Reporters clustered near the courtroom entrance, their cameras and microphones ready. Word had spread about the case, the community's interest piqued by the dramatic arrest at the school event. I pulled my daughter closer, shielding her from the attention. A court officer approached us. The prosecutor wants to speak with you both before we begin, he said, gesturing toward a side room. Inside, the lead prosecutor, a woman named Osamantha Chen, spread documents across the table. Her expression was serious, but encouraging. The evidence is overwhelming, she began. Your ex-wife's financial records show a clear pattern of funding harassment from prison. Combined with the threatening letter and witness testimonies, we have them cornered. My daughter studied the papers, her face composed. What happens if they plead guilty? That's what I wanted to discuss, Osamantha replied. They've been offered a deal. Your mother would get 2 years, eligible for parole in 1. Your former stepfather would have 3 years added to his current sentence. That's not enough, I said immediately. Osamantha nodded. I agree, but trials are unpredictable. This guarantees prison time and establishes a permanent record. The decision is ultimately yours. My daughter looked at me, then back at the prosecutor. We go to trial. I want everyone to hear the truth. Pride swelled in my chest at her courage. Osamantha smiled slightly. I hoped you'd say that. Let's make them face what they've done. We entered the courtroom through a side door, avoiding the media circus. The gallery was packed with familiar faces from our community. Catherine sat in the front row, offering offering a supportive nod. My boss was there, along with parents from the debate team and neighbors who'd witnessed the harassment. My ex-wife sat at the defendant's table, her orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the polished image she'd always projected. Her lawyer, a thin man with nervous energy, whispered urgently in her ear. She kept glancing back at us, her expression shifting between anger and desperation. The judge entered, and everyone rose. Judge McJonathan Williams, a man with sharp eyes and graying temples, took his seat and called the court to order. The charges were read: conspiracy, witness intimidation, money laundering, child endangerment through proxy. Samantha's opening statement was devastating in its simplicity. She laid out the timeline, the evidence, the systematic campaign of terror designed to separate a father from his daughter. She played recordings of prison calls, displayed financial transfers, showed the threatening letter. The defense attorney tried to paint my ex as a victim herself, manipulated by her imprisoned partner. He claimed she was trying to protect her daughter from a man she genuinely believed was dangerous. The argument fell flat against the mountain of evidence. My daughter testified first. She walked to the witness stand with remarkable poise, sworn in with a steady voice. Samantha guided her through the questions gently but thoroughly. She described years of lies about me, the emotional manipulation, the fear tactics used to keep her compliant. She detailed finding the photos, questioning the narrative she'd been fed, secretly adding me as her emergency contact, hoping someday I'd come back. "Why didn't you reach out sooner?" Samantha asked. "I was scared," my daughter admitted. "They told me he'd hurt me if I tried to contact him. They said he had people watching, waiting for me to make that mistake." The defense attorney's cross-examination was aggressive. He questioned her memory, suggested I'd coached her testimony, implied she was rebelling against reasonable parental discipline. My daughter remained calm, answering each challenge with quiet strength. "You claim your stepfather hit you, but there are no police reports, no documentation. Why should we believe you now?" My daughter lifted her sleeve, revealing faded scars on her forearm. "Because I learned to hide the bruises. Because I was terrified of what would happen if I told anyone. Because they convinced me this was normal, that I deserved it." The courtroom was silent. Several jurors looked stricken. My ex-wife's mask finally cracked, tears streaming down her face. But I'd seen those tears before, performed for effect. I testified next, detailing the original custody battle, the decade of silence, the systematic destruction of my relationship with my daughter. I presented every letter I'd sent, every returned gift, every attempt to maintain contact. "The defendant told you directly about the affair?" Samantha asked. "Yes, the night of the custody ruling. She said they'd been planning it for 2 years. The defense tried to discredit me, bringing up the false abuse allegations from a decade ago. But Samantha was ready with Catherine's testimony about my alibi, the investigator's report showing the doctored evidence, the pattern of lies that had finally unraveled. Catherine took the stand next, describing how she'd been manipulated into believing the lies. She produced emails from my ex-wife detailing the dangerous things I'd supposedly done, each claim more outlandish than the last. "I feel like such a fool," Catherine said, her voice thick with emotion. "I helped them. I testified against him because I believed their lies. I'll never forgive myself for that." The investigator presented his findings methodically: financial records, phone logs, connections between prison accounts, and harassment incidents. He'd even tracked down 2 of my former best friend's ex-girlfriends, both willing to testify about his pattern of abuse and manipulation. One by one, community members took the stand. The teacher who'd noticed bruises but been told they were from sports. The neighbor who'd heard screaming but been assured it was just teenage dramatics. The debate coach who'd wondered why such a bright girl seemed so fearful. The prosecution rested after 2 days of devastating testimony. The defense's case was brief and unconvincing. They called character witnesses who'd only known my ex-wife superficially. They tried to introduce doubt about the financial records, suggesting accounting errors rather than deliberate fraud. My ex-wife took the stand on the 3rd day. Her lawyer had clearly coached her extensively. She portrayed herself as a devoted mother trying to protect her child, led astray by a manipulative partner. She claimed ignorance of the harassment campaign, said the money was for his commissary needs. Samantha's cross-examination was surgical. She produced visitor logs showing my ex at the prison during times when harassment calls were made. She showed text messages between my ex and various prisoners discussing the project. She played a recorded call where my ex explicitly discussed making him pay for taking her away. "You knew about the abuse, didn't you?" Samantha pressed. "You knew your partner was hitting your daughter." "I suspected," my ex admitted quietly. "But I thought she needed discipline." "Discipline? Or did you simply not care as long as it kept her in line?" My ex's composure shattered. She screamed that I'd ruined everything, that I'd turned her daughter against her, that I deserved everything they'd done. The judge had to call for order, threatening contempt charges. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. As they filed back in, I held my daughter's hand tightly. The foreman stood, verdict in hand. On the charge of conspiracy to commit harassment, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of witness intimidation, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of money laundering, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of child endangerment through proxy, we find the defendant guilty. Each verdict hit like a physical blow to my ex-wife. She swayed in her seat, her lawyer steadying her. My daughter remained still beside me, but I felt the tension leave her body with each guilty pronouncement. Sentencing was set for the following month. As court officers prepared to lead my ex away, she turned to look at us one last time. The hatred in her eyes was mixed with something else, perhaps the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her in years: fear. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I shielded my daughter as we pushed through, offering no comment. Catherine and other supporters formed a protective circle, helping us reach my car. "It's over," my daughter said as we drove away. "It's really over." But I knew better. Legal victories were just one part of healing. The real work lay ahead. The sentencing hearing arrived faster than expected. My ex-wife appeared diminished, the weeks in custody stripping away her carefully maintained facade. The judge revealed reviewed the evidence, the testimonies, the impact on a young girl manipulated and abused by those meant to protect her. 6 years, Judge Williams announced, with possibility of parole after 4, contingent on completing therapy and parenting classes. My ex-wife collapsed, sobbing. Her lawyer requested minimum security placement, citing her lack of violent offenses. The judge agreed, but added strict conditions: no contact with us, directly or through third parties, for 10 years after release. As they led her away, she didn't look back. The next months passed in a blur of normalcy that felt surreal. My daughter threw herself into school, her grades recovering as stress lifted. She made real friends, joined the drama club, started dating a nice boy from her chemistry class. I watched her bloom with wonder and gratitude. Every milestone, her first school dance, getting her driver's license, college acceptance letters, felt like a gift I'd never thought I'd witness. One evening, as we cooked dinner together in our small kitchen, she brought up something that had been nagging at her. "Do you think Mom ever really loved me?" she asked, chopping vegetables with practiced ease. I considered my words carefully. "I think she loved the idea of you, the control, the image of a perfect family. But real love means putting someone else's needs first. She never learned that." She nodded, processing this. I feel sorry for her sometimes, living with all that anger, all those lies. It must be exhausting. Her compassion amazed me. After everything, she could still find empathy for the woman who'd tried to destroy us.